Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and today I'm back with a review of a game called Colossal Cave. This is a brand new adventure game from Roberta Williams, who is the co-founder of Sierra Online. She's also the creator of classic games like King's Quest, Phantasmagoria, and this is her first game in over 25 years. This game is based on one of the earliest adventure games ever made called Colossal Cave Adventure, which at the time was a text-only adventure game when it was released back in 1976. This was the game that originally captured Roberta Williams' imagination all those years ago and actually inspired her and her husband Ken Williams to then create their own games and start their own game developer studio. There might have never been a Sierra Online publisher without the original Colossal Cave Adventure. Now, before we get started, I do want to address that a review like this for me is a bit tricky because, well, I'm grateful to call Ken and Roberta friends, and also I worked for them at Sierra in the 90s, and I gave them feedback early on during the development of this game, and I was thanked in the credits. However, I want my audience to understand what this game is and what you can expect if you play it, so I'm going to be pretty honest and often critical in this video, but I think it's going to be pretty fair too. So let's go ahead and get started with this, and I got to tell you right off the bat, I was pleasantly surprised at just how large this game is. I really didn't know what to expect when I went in because I never played the original, and I guess I assumed that it was going to be a fairly simple, small game. And it is not, actually. If you go into this game with no hints or using the map, you're looking at about 20 plus hours to complete it, and even more if you want to get the best ending. You start out by thinking that this is going to be some just really large mountainous cave, kind of similar to something you would find in Skyrim, but there are some real surprises here. Basically, this game is all about trying to find treasure and also building up those points. Now, ultimately, you want to get to 350 points for the best ending. And I will say there is something really cool for longtime fans if you get that score by the end of the game. Now, one of my first nitpicks in this game is that some of the puzzles are completely illogical, at least to me. And for me to better explain this, I'll need to talk about some puzzle spoilers, but I'll keep it to early in the game. For instance, you pick up a magical wand within the first 5 minutes of starting it, but then you meet a bird that you want to capture in a bird cage. However, the bird flies off every time you approach. Well, that's because for some reason, he's afraid of that magic wand that you just got. So you need to drop it on the ground before he'll let you capture him. Why does this happen? I mean, the game literally just had you pick up that wand, but now it wants you to know to drop it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. A few minutes later, you'll meet this very large snake that's blocking your path, and you want to get past him to get some treasure. However, you need to use that bird in the cage to scare the large snake to make him run off. Now, why would a massive snake be afraid of this little bird? How would you know this? I mean, I have no idea. Basically, when you get stuck, you kind of need to try everything in your inventory on everything you see around you. Not every puzzle is like this, but enough of them are. It definitely feels very old school. And let's talk about the graphics. Now, I'll be honest, we're really talking kind of PlayStation 2 era graphics here, maybe a tad better, but I don't think anybody's really going to call these impressive. I'm running the PC version here, but I wonder if maybe it was originally targeted for VR, which often needs, lower quality graphics to create that 3D effect, at least to get a decent frame rate. Either way, I think the graphics are passable, but they're certainly not going to win any awards.
There is a threatening dwarf. A sharp knife is thrown. It missed.
Another surprise with this game is that it has randomized attacks by enemies. Now, these are incredibly annoying and kind of unnecessary in a puzzle game. It definitely makes the game more frustrating than I think it needs to be, but the good news is you can kill them if you're quick, and it's definitely a reminder that you need to save early and save often. An aspect of the game that was a surprise that I really liked is the voiceover narration. It's really good.
That's a splendid waterfall, but be careful around it. You're in a magnificent cavern. There is a rushing stream that cascades as a sparkling waterfall into a roaring whirlpool, which drains through a hole in the floor.
The voice actor that they hired is extremely professional and has a ton of personality. Plus, everything you do in the game will have this voiceover, and so it's really fun to get his comments. Plus, he'll give you hints if you need them at the cost of your score, so just be aware. I mentioned how this game is bigger than I expected it to be, but also it's more varied than you would think. The game really does a good job giving you a sense of wonder about what will be coming around the next corner. You never really know. And there is a map, which is a nice touch, although it can be difficult to understand since many of the rooms connect in really odd ways. You really need to study it if you don't want to get lost. Also, there's a compass at the top of the screen, so you know which direction you are moving in. Between that and also the map, you probably won't get too lost. A big part of this game is dropping items and also inventory management. One hint I'm going to give you, especially if you're stuck, is to try dropping some things. You can always come back for it later, and what's cool is that items will show up on the map, which is very handy. I kind of wish there was a bit more of an overarching story to this game, especially in the beginning of it, because you're basically just plopped down into the game without any backstory or any reason for what you're doing. You really need to just accept that this is a pure puzzle game and you just want to get the best score, which is very different than a lot of those classic Sierra games like King's Quest and Space Quest and Leisure Suit Larry. Those are all very story-driven games, character-driven games, and this doesn't really have much of that at all, which can be a bit of a disappointment if you are expecting some of those type of Sierra games. You're not going to get that here. And so while this game I think is fun for people who love puzzles, they love difficult puzzles, they want to be challenged, they're looking forward to just exploring this really weird cave. But if you go into this expecting a classic Sierra adventure, I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed. And my hope is that if this is a success, and if Ken and Roberta want to continue on and do other games, that perhaps they'll look back and inject a little bit more of story and personality and characters into their next game that they make. Because again, that's what they're known for, and I think that's what a lot of fans will expect. I messed around with the MetaQuest 2 VR version a bit, and this is where I think the graphics work a little bit better. For one, the scale of the game is much larger in VR, and the caves feel even bigger. And yes, the graphics are a generation or two behind, but again, I think they work better here because this is something that's a little bit more immersive. And it's the exact same game that you would play, on PlayStation 5 or Xbox or PC. But again, it's just in VR, so you're just really there. It's pretty cool. What's nice is that they have a couple different options for comfort controls if you are sensitive to motion sickness in VR. So the footage you see here is me playing it in comfort mode. But to be quite honest, I was getting no motion sickness. I could have made it even smoother, and I think I would have been all right. And so that's my review of Colossal Cave 3D, the first Ken and Roberta Williams game in over 25 years. And I have to say, it was a very ambitious project, probably bigger than even they thought it was going to be. And I would say they mostly pull it off. You just have to go into it understanding that they are remaking a game from basically the 1970s. And I'll be really curious to see what they do going forward. This game is going to be available on PlayStation, Xbox. It's also going to be available on Steam Deck because they're doing actually a Linux build of it. It's coming to Switch, PC, obviously, and of course, VR. So they're kind of doing everything here. I'll put a link down to their website below in the video description. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.